wish that you'd found those words so you could make your point.
Wow. Thank you. See the difference, everybody? Anything you can do to throw the conversation into their lap makes it interactive. If it's a billboard,
the other way we were addressing,
go ahead, Connor.
sorry, Kevin. The other way we were addressing this last week was that in terms of marketing positioning, a sentence was that you would put up on one of your slides, Kevin, was I work with people who have a certain problem. So did anyone actually try and address that kind of a positioning?
Yeah, I took a shot at it. And I kind of refined where I started actually, but I work with business professionals and organizations who struggle to find and implement systems that improve their success at work and in the marketplace.
Is there a way to say that in a shorter way, Michael?
Yeah. So I work with business professionals and organizations who struggle with systems. Well, let's see.
Yeah.
To find and implement systems that improve their effectiveness.
Okay, take a look at the slide and then see what you can do with that.
I work with people, and I think the business professionals and organizations might be, kind of trying to define it a little bit better. But I could say people who want to find a roadmap for success among the various ideas they encounter and struggle to implement that.
Okay, you're getting there. You're getting there. So the idea is get it short and succinct.
Yeah.
People in organizations, maybe you just need people. Or I work with the professionals who set. So the shorter you can make it, probably the more interesting it is, and the less jargon.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're really on the right track. That's great. Yeah.
Right. Jan or Joe? All right, Jan, I see the smiling face there. I knew you were ready for it.
Look, I'm a little tired this morning, but anyway, that's why I didn't jump in. I work with people to help take the ick out of networking.
Introverts of the world unite.
I do. There is a world peace part component of that. There is a little, but I haven't figured how to work that in yet.
I love the ick.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
One of the things that intrigues me about a lot of networking, if you've been to networking meetings and you ask someone what do they do, you know that after 15 seconds your eyes glaze over as they're given their elevator pitch. What we want to try and avoid here is those eyes to be glazing over. And I mean, that is a really tight, concise, very, very definite positioning that you've got, Jan. So kudos to you on that. But taking a second, Steve, Sylvia Duncan, by the way, you're not on camera at the moment. That might be by your choice, I'm sure. And you're also on mute, which is fair enough.
I'm unmuted.
I'll come to you in a few minutes.
I'm unmuted. My dog is running around. That's what was going on. But I work with women to help them move past adversity from their past.
Wow. Wow.
I like it.
I wonder if you could just add in a little, I work with women in the workplace or something like that, unless you want to advertise yourself as a therapist or a psychologist.
So I would say I work with women who have been caught in domestic violence to help them move past their past.
Okay.
But I didn't know if that would kind of pigeonhole me.
Yeah. Are you advertising yourself as a therapist or as a speaker?
Well, I do have a psychology degree, but no, it would just be as a speaker.
Okay.
I am a life coach. So yeah, it would just be in this instance, just as a speaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Sylvia, what I might suggest is that you can actually go with the overarching one. You work with women. You're going to get a response back to that. That then allows you to say something about domestic abuse, for instance. So you don't. I mean, and the answer to this, by the way, can differ depending on who your audience is, I think, as well. But as long as you're clear what you're going to offer that particular audience, that's the key thing.
Okay.
Could she say, Connor, could she say, I speak professionally to women, blah, blah, blah? Would that, I guess it depends on who she's talking to, but would that get her out of the, are you a therapist? Are you a consultant? Or do we want them to kind of wonder about that? So they ask her more questions.
I don't know. It's kind of whatever she feels more comfortable with. I think actually putting the word professionally in there is not a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just too mercenary, possibly. But
Yeah, especially
well-
with that core group, you know, I mean, I think saying professionally would kind of
Yeah,
make them uncomfortable.
yeah,
I would think that you'd want to say working with women in business or in the home. That gives two clear categories for them to pick from and gets you out of the nebulous
yeah.
context.
So if I don't say domestic violence, if I just say I work with women to help them move past adversity from their past, I mean, adversity could be anything.
That's
Yeah.
right.
There are a
That's-
lot of
and that's-
things that could possibly hold them back from going forward. Doesn't have to be domestic violence, but it, you know.
So what you're
And-
doing is you're creating enough ambiguity that someone could say, what do you mean by that?
Exactly.
Or they could say, oh, I know exactly what that means because I didn't get promoted last week and a man did. And so.
Oh, yeah.
And also domestic violence has a different meaning for many different people, so that, you know, it frees you from that trap, especially if they have unconscious denial about it.
Right.
Becky,
I
you got your
think the
hand up?
great point about this question, Steve will take you second before Becky, Steve had his hand raised. But I think the great point about this question is that it allows for a conversation. And that, I think, when it comes to networking, like I said, Jan might agree, is that the more you get a conversation going rather than you just speeding on for 75 seconds and then the other person talking for 75 seconds and all you want to do is get away from them. So this is a really good question to get a conversation going. So Steve, you were raising your hand, and we'll take Becky, and then I'll go back to Joe and Christina.
Okay, have you ever missed a family event due to work and felt like it was causing not only disappointment for yourself, but also for those closest to you? I work with people who need more self-care for their health care.
Wow.
Right. So you've done it in question format and in the I work with. I think it's quite nice, quite good.
That's nice. I like that. Yeah.
Becky, you have your hand, and then we'll go to Joe and Christina.
No, I had a question about Sylvia's. So should we be keeping it broad or really narrowing in on our niche? That's something that I keep going back and forth with, and I hear different advice from different people as far as that we should be niching down. So people who were derailed from their healthy lifestyle rebuild a fitness and health plan that works for them. But I've also been invited out to do programs for people that were just derailed and trying to rebuild their life. And so Sylvia tapped on that question for me when she was saying, I forget which word she used, but that she was, Sylvia, what word was that began with an A? That you were saying it could be taken in different ways.
Adversity. And Becky, yeah. So I put something out on Facebook, a little note every other day. It's called Derailed and Righted. And so I talk about how people are derailed and then what it means to be righted. So, but I don't, that's just something I do every other day or so on Facebook, but I kind of connect with you about with that derailed. But I also add righted, because when a train is derailed, when they put it back on the track, they say it's righted.
I mean,
Yeah,
what I
thank
like about the word derailed, either for Becky or for Sylvia, is that it's such a powerful word, and it can mean so many things to so many different people. It's going to get their brain thinking. So you're not, I suppose you're being broad initially there, Becky, and then it'll generate the conversation. You get more specific. Joe and Christine. Sorry.
I had a client the other day who said, I land the plane when I'm going around. Have you ever been going round and round? You just want to land the plane. And I thought that was an interesting metaphor. It's kind of like a rail metaphor. One thing to think about that I hope that we will never talk about again ever is the elevator speech. The elevator speech is about us. The elevator question is about what you're about to do. So, or the airplane question. So be very careful about projectile vomiting what you do to somebody, which is what the elevator speech is. Thank you, Connor. Love you too. Yeah.
I bow before you. Absolutely agree on that one. So Joe and Christina. Joe, your positioning?
Yeah, so the question is, have you ever felt stuck while trying to grow your business?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I hope people get unstuck and get more of their time back.
Yeah. I bet Elon Musk would even say yes to that.
Might well do. Okay, good questions, Joe and Christina.
Have you ever found that you have anxiety over the decisions that you're making?
Wow.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
They're so succinct, aren't they? And it's like, boom, just like, yeah.
Get a nerve.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Alan, so we said we'll come back to you. Have you had any thoughts as to how to make yours more succinct?
Yes, it's great that this is now being recorded and not previously. So what has broken your heart in the last few weeks? I work with people who want to make a difference in their community.
All right. Yeah.
You like that, Alan? Is that?
It's not
really
quite there, but it's getting closer.
Yes, yes.
What is, what is, what do you hope people will gather around to make a difference?
Right.
I work with people who want to make a difference.
Yeah.
In our community.
I think especially the kind of work you do with your interracial stuff and the community building and all that, that would really resonate probably with a lot of them. Yeah. Nice.
Okay. We'll have Bill coming in about 10 minutes time. So let's go to the other exercise that I suggested you do, which was making a pitch to an association and what were going to be the key learning objectives that you might be suggesting. Does anyone have any work done on that?
Could you repeat it?
Yeah.
You fade out
Again.
every once in a while.
Right, my system is a bit messy this morning. Okay, so the other exercise that you had was to pitch to an association and provide some learning objectives. Did anyone do any work on that?
Oh, with the Bloom's taxonomy, that one? With the learning objective?
Yeah.
Delegate. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I don't know if I, used the right words, but I did take a stab at it.
Right.
And I was calling my presentation, Take the Ick Out of Networking. Positioning statement was, networking is your key to creating a fulfilling career and personal life. Learn how to create and implement a networking plan to create a meaningful relationships that help you grow. Learning objectives and goals. Remove nervousness from the networking process by properly prepping. Then I prepping, learn how to graciously step away from people who won't get you anywhere, and how helping others can be the key to a successful networking plan. And then plus going beyond the cocktail party can be your key success. It definitely needs to be wordsmithed. Yeah, so that was my
Thanks.
first stab at it.
So the way you can do it too is, those are good, is at the end of this program, participants will be able to :
Yep.
and that's when you put in the Bloom taxonomy stuff
Okay.
of describe, list, assess, critique, demonstrate, discuss, those kinds of words. So at the end of this program, participants will be able to : this is just what associations like to.
Oh,
And don't worry about it too much, because once you're up on the platform, they don't even remember it. So it's mostly for your proposal.
okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, it is critical for the proposal. If what the associations want to do is they want to fill their agenda. They want to be able to offer continuing education credits.
Yeah.
And without being cynical, that's what they want to do. The quality of it, sometimes it can be a bit iffy, but they need to get learning objectives to be sent to the accreditation board so that they will get the CLEs then. And what I think happens is that if you can just use some of the words from that taxonomy, you will, that's the way to do it. Action verbs, keep it reasonably concise. But here's the thing, gang, for each of you. If you cannot identify what the learning objectives are concisely, why will someone consider you at all? If you can't position yourself clearly, concisely, and memorably, why will someone remember to refer you to someone else? So what we're doing here last week and right now, I think, is probably, if you get it right, you're well on the way to launching and progressing and accelerating your business. Kevin?
You know, Connor does stand up, which, by the way, if you ever get a chance to see him, it's very, very funny. So, but what's interesting is Jay Leno said the secret to all comedy is in the editing. And when you listen to stand-up comedians, it's very tightly written. The really good ones, of course, it's really tightly written material. So it's not something that they just kind of, some of them just think of it, and that doesn't work so well. But the ones who really work at their craft, they say Seinfeld still spends 4 hours a day writing comedy and editing. So when you listen to some of the programs on TV, I've become fascinated lately with Night Court, which is could possibly be the stupidest show on. But for some reason I like it, and I put it on so I can read it, and I notice it's very tightly written, stupidly written, but tightly written. And so if you can get tight, get rid of the jargon, make it understandable to an 8th grader or a high schooler, I think you're then very much on the right track. And so with objectives for associations, don't get too long, don't promise too much, make it so broad they say, oh, that's what I want them to do. And then when that happens, so more effectively present to executive leadership would be an objective. So it's broad, it's very broad, but you don't want to get too specific, because sometimes they say, well, it's not exactly that. Then they start objecting. When it's too specific, they start throwing their 2 cents in, and that messes things up. The broader you can make it, the better, I think.
Right. I'll ask you, have you any questions based on what we've done this morning and from last week in a moment, but I just want to give a quick few thoughts on associations. I think one piece of exercise that we might give you for next week is for you, I'll take a sec, John, is for you to identify an association, 2 associations that you might be able to pitch to. Okay? I will ask you what those associations are. Then when you get onto those websites, see whether or not that they got requests for proposals. Just those simple little things, again, will help you to refine your thinking. And then the third part of that exercise is that see if you can find the agenda for the last conference that they did, and see the kind of speakers and the topics that were used at that association. So I'll put that in the email to you, but I think that would be a good exercise for you. John, you were raising your hand.
Oh yeah, can I take a stab at this? the pitch to the association?
Okay, yes, yeah.
Okay, so my presentation is on creating drama-free, high-performing cultures. And at the end of the workshop, people will be able to identify drama in their workplace, how to shift out of the drama, how to encourage more individual responsibility, and how to address conflict.
So those are 4 objectives.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. If you make it 4, not 1 sentence.
Yeah, I'll make it 4 individual.
4, you can't say bullet point anymore, 4 dot points. So,
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes sense. I hadn't heard that
Right.
before.
Okay.
I won't be changing my views on bullet points, I gotta say, but actually, interesting, we do have someone coming on in a couple of weeks' time. Valda Ford was going to be talking about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, etc. And I'm sure language and the kind of phraseology is going to be interesting there as well. So I know Kevin made a point last session about dot points rather than bullet points. To me, I think it's gone way over the top, but
so for
I know we
example,
gotta be careful though.
yeah, Common Spirit, which is the largest Catholic healthcare system in the country,
Yeah,
they have a list. You can't say, boy, I put a gun to my head on that one, or bullet points, flip chart, no, those kinds of things, and things that are commonplace in our and the purpose of this is their tagline for the last few years has been human kindness. So they're very big on human kindness, and
Right.
very big on hospitality. Yeah, Christina?
How is flip chart offensive?
It was a term used in World War II by GIs for Filipinos. And
Huh.
so one of the suggestions is to use paper chart instead of flip chart. Now, you know, we can think like Connor does, and sometimes I do, about, is this really a big deal? This is kind of going overboard. The question is, how does your audience think about it? So if I'm talking to Common Spirit, I haven't done enough research or haven't talked to them enough. My son is at a convention in Vegas last week, and they hired a professional comedian who interviewed all the execs for 5 weeks beforehand to get what they do and to gather some material. He said all of the humor was customized, except during one part, he said, well, it's a lot better than so-and-so doing a line of cocaine.
Oh,
Okay.
Well,
So now that's Vegas humor. When you go to the clubs, which is probably where this guy works, that's probably not corporate humor when you're talking about the CEOs and CFOs of a company that hired you. Now, it might have been a mistake. Of course, you know, he may not have meant anything. He may have just thought, I'll just toss this in, might be funny, because all of us in Vegas talk that way. But so you can imagine everything is about how do they perceive it. So one of my friends is Italian, and he made a joke about gangsters. In his family, he got feedback that's not okay, because I think he was talking to a primarily Italian-American group. And another NPR reporter a few years ago got in front of a big healthcare system, and she made some snide comments about Trump. This is early in Trump's presidency. And uniformed officers in the army got up and left in the middle of her speech. Somebody else said, just tell us about you. We're not interested in him. I mean, it caused a big stir. She thought because she was in Chicago, Democratic, that it would go over well. The only problem is most of the people at the conference are not from Chicago.
right.
So that's why it is. So that's you just have to sensitize yourself to how do I want to come across and what's special about this audience.
So if kindness is your focus, then you won't run into a problem. It's when you go off on a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, you have to be, you just have to be aware know what this, what's special about it? Are there any terms that are special or offensive with this group? And if you did that with Common Spirit, they would give you the list they have a whole list that they use. So, so other companies do the exact same thing. We don't call them contracts, we call them agreements. So if you start talking about contracts, that's going to be counter to what their understanding is of how they normally talk. So it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect all the time. It just means you try to understand the culture of the client.
Mhm.
Now, I talk to doctors. They are,
I think,
are
I
like
mean,
truck
it does raise,
huh? Go ahead.
I mean, it does raise a very valid point. As presenters, we got to be very careful, and it is much more walking on eggshells now than it used to be. I do know that when I go down to down south or Bible Belt country, if you call it that, I'm more careful about the phrases I would use. Now, none that would ever be offensive, I think, but it is something that is concerning, and the level of sensitivity, it can be pretty extreme, I think, but we just got to be very, very careful. The best thing I would say is that I did an event down at a Namish conference down in Indiana, Shipshewana, Indiana, last January. And before I went on, my wife said, "You better be careful about what you say." So, and I was very careful about what I said. I've actually just a conference where we had about 1,500 Amish people were attending the exhibition just for furniture. The parking lot was full of Amish horses and carriages. That was basically what it was. When I was doing the presentation, the Amish partners, husbands and wives, were bringing in their kids as well, like they were sitting on their laps kind of thing. It was a fascinating presentation. And when I said anything slightly funny, they laughed like crazy, long laughs. I was driving back. I was texting my wife on the way back. I stopped, of course, and texted then. And I said, I've never had such fun at a presentation in my life.
Wow.
This is a group of people that don't watch television, don't have any basic electrical equipment in general. And it was a fascinating, really interesting presentation. But you got the core point, you got to be very careful and tailor your message. Michael.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think it's a really fast moving thing. It's evolving so quickly, and some things that you're supposed to say or not say. Guys is one that just came up in a meeting that I was in, where, that putting out, hey, you guys you guys understand this is something that we're supposed to move away from. And I noticed, Connor, you use gang as kind of a thing that maybe substitutes that, where we all otherwise might, or you might otherwise say that. And the pronouns too is something I made the mistake of. I thought someone was clearly, male and identified with male pronouns, and someone pointed out to me when I said, he did this. Someone said, well, Jesse doesn't identify with he, him. Jesse has they, them. So, there's a lot to be aware of now.
And using their name is a good alternative, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. Yeah. And I teach physicians, and I mean, they say some of the grossest, most unbelievable stuff to each other, men and women. And sometimes I will just say, yikes. Or sometimes I just let them talk to each other in the way they talk to each other, but I can't talk that way because I'm the presenter.
Right.
So I'd like to, but I can't do it. So, yeah.
So rather than using guys, you guys, would y'all work?
Well, if you're using the plural, it's all y'all. So,
All you all, okay.
but you could say all of us,
Mhm.
or that sort of stuff, or everyone. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
organizations, people struggle with that, and y'all seems to be one that is kind of moving towards the accepted one.
Who knew?
Yeah, Connor's from the restaurant industry, and I always get perturbed when a young waiter or waitress comes says, "Hi, guys," and I want to say, "Excuse me," that's rather informal. So, I would respond to "Sir," "Gentlemen," that sort of thing. So I think some of it is also that the other thing is, and this happens when you get into your 70s, is people call you young man. "Hi, young man, how are you?" And Terry Gross gets that, and she said, "Clearly, I'm not young." So it doesn't come across affectionately, it comes across kind of aged.
Sending.
So, yeah. So I've got about 25 years left, so I'm gonna make sure that doesn't happen anymore. So I'm gonna train people.
What my brother likes to say in Ireland is, if there's some Americans he's chatting to, he says, "Okay, see y'all in y'all." And you haven't got a clue what I'm saying, but there's actually a town in Cork, County Cork, called Youghal, which is spelled Youghal. So he likes to say, "See y'all in y'all." Okay, right.
This is what happens when you have to explain humor. So
That's true. That is true. That is true. Yeah, but he actually, they're all looking at him blankly and they're saying the man is crazy. He is. But anyway, all right. Do we have any other questions about what we have covered so far? I'm going to have to make a phone call to see where Bill Guertin is in a second. But do we have any questions that you want to address right now?
When we're doing our items of interest for an association to read, is there a limit on how many we can include?
a limit on how many?
Items. For
Oh.
example, I have experienced anyone with a heart who attends will experience greater peace, have coherent communication, be effective in decision-making, make effective problem solving, I've repeated that, and have better coherent connection with one another.
And Connor, if you want to, you can go off and make the phone call, and I'll.
Okay. Yeah.
I think less is more.
Okay.
So if you can say maybe 3 things. And anybody with a heart or something like that, or people want to enhance their heart, you have to be careful about that. If you're talking to, a religious group that uses that terminology, then you're in good shape. If you're talking to a corporate facility that may not use that kind of, then you just want to say, at the end of this program, the participants will be able to, then they can go. And some of it depends too, some of our softer language that Alan's used to and that you're used to, and somewhat that I'm used to, we just have to figure out, will the audience wonder about that, or is that just will that continue the flow?
What if I were to say, anyone who attends and has a beating heart, to make it more physical than the religious connotation?
Well, no, I think just heart is a word, so that might be an issue, Most of us have beating hearts, and
Well, yeah, that's why, but there are some who don't, yeah.
yeah, but if you're speaking about emotional intelligence to a group that already digs that language, then you're okay.
Okay.
That's why the research is so important. I always want to talk to the meeting planner before I quote money and before we start doing objectives. Tell me what's most important to this group, and then I can find out much more from their point of view of what's going on. I don't want to do, I forget, what do you call it? That thing you do online where you can answer a bunch of questions, and I forget what the name.
A poll?
Yeah. So I don't do any of that. It's all personal. So I want to, and I'm taking notes like crazy. I don't talk about money until the very end. Tell me some more about your conference. What are the people like? If it's really a conference I'm not aware of too much, are there 8 or 10 people I could talk to beforehand? Just 10 or 15 minutes to get a sense of what it's like for them. Meeting planners love that when you do that. And then, of course, you have to do it. But around this 4th or 5th interview, I'm getting an understanding of what what it's like. What's your greatest challenge? What are you looking forward to? What did you like about the last conference? Who did they have last year? If they can't remember the speaker's name from last year, that's an indicator too. Or they remember the speaker's name and it was somebody famous and they didn't like him, you know? So that's anything you can get is helpful, you know, but do it, always include something personal, a telephone call or a Zoom if you're going to, not just kind of the academic or computer research that you can do. Any luck there, Connor?
Yeah, Bill has got some minor emergency. He said he'd be with us shortly, so I told him to
Good.
take it easy. So on that topic, Kevin, let's have, he said he'd be here about 5 minutes, so I don't even need to go into any particular didactic stuff right now. So we'll ask a few more questions. So if you were getting onto an association, Kevin has actually just referenced a few of them there. If you're getting onto an association, trying to find out what they are looking for in a speaker, what are the kind of questions you will be asking the event planner to help you to customize your material? Anyone want to volunteer a question that they will ask the event planner to help customize your material?
Another way to do it is put yourself as the event planner. What questions would you like the speaker to ask you?
I mean, I'd be interested
Okay,
in
John?
what topics or challenges are top of mind with your members.
Okay. Somebody else?
What difficulties do your members face?
Yes. Nice.
Are there is there anything that would be, so to speak, taboo that I shouldn't touch on, especially if I'm speaking to a group of women who have been caught in domestic violence? Is there anything I should not speak on?
Nice.
Right. Good question.
How do you measure the success of an event?
Nice. See how,
Yeah.
how clear that is? So easy to answer. What did they like best about the speakers they had last year? And they always tell you what they didn't like.
Right.
What do they understand and what do they want to understand?
Hmm. And what do you want them to understand? So there's a subtext there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
What's the venue like? That's helpful for us because it tells you what you're going to be walking into.
Right, like how is the room set up?
Yep.
Is there a podium or just a mic?
Yep. Yep.
Can I use a lav instead?
Yeah. And you always want to get rid of the podium. No podium guys ever. No. This separates you from the crowd. Yeah, it's good to know because some of them are very weird setups. So, you know, especially if you're dealing in a, oh, it's our board of directors conference room. Well, that means there's a table in there that they built the entire building around because there's no way they can get it through the door.
Yeah.
And so and everybody's got a little microphone, they got a little TV. That's very hard to engage in those venues, but it's good to know that it's there.
Maybe what are the goals or purpose of the conference?
Yeah,
what do you want to
nice.
accomplish?
Yeah. And they always make a big thing out of their theme. They always have a theme that, you know, we're sailing on the winds of the future and all that stuff. And so it's good to know that and maybe incorporate some without being too tied into it. Again, it's kind of like the objectives. I don't know for the attendees that it's that big of a deal, but for the planners, it's a big deal.
And asking, what does the theme mean for them?
Oh, nice. Really nice. Yeah. Yeah.
What about if you say, I want to make sure that I fit into what you need? Can you give me a little bit of a portfolio of past events you've planned?
Nice. Later on, when you get the job, you want to find out what the background looks like, because if the background is black curtains, you don't want to wear black. That happens, yeah.
Just a face walking around.
Yeah. Kind of a hologram, interesting. Also, I found, and is that if I have a man who is doing the meeting planning, like a physician, they're kind of like, whatever you do is fine. So you don't always get a ton of information that way. So sometimes I have to talk to their admin, which is frequently a woman, and they know all the good stuff, all the juicy stuff. So I try to find out who the planner is and then maybe who their admin is. They said, well, so-and-so will take care of that stuff. And they usually take care of a lot of really good stuff. These are great questions, wonderful questions.
One other one I wanted to ask, how about what is the best way to communicate, or how have you communicated with previous speakers that when you were involved in event planning, so to make them realize or that I want to make sure that I'm communicating with you to make everything run smoothly?
Maybe, I don't know, if somebody asked you that question, you as meeting planner, what would your response be?
Well, I have people ask me that every day, actually, and because I say text, phone, email.
Yeah.
What is the best way to communicate with you? Because I want to make sure we have this run smoothly.
Okay, that's different. I like that one better. What's the best way I can communicate with you?
Mhm.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
I think Bill is with us, Connor.
Yeah, he is. Bill, welcome aboard. Just a few quick final points here. I think a couple of other core questions are, you ask who is in the audience? Is it men, women? Kind of understand what their the sex makeup of the audience is. The other question I think I often ask is, especially in talking to business audiences, is what is the kind of average salary of people in the audience, and also the education level? Because both of those will actually help you to understand who you're speaking to, what kind of material you can present to them as well. So let's go to Mr. Bill Guertin. Bill, I'm sorry for putting you under pressure. I know you had some issues at home there a few minutes ago, but thank you very much for your time. If you need to go off, just do what you need to do. What we do, Bill, is you see the group here. This is the second program, and the first question we start off with before you do your presentation is, who the heck is Bill Guertin?
When I'm supposed to answer that.
You got it, my brother.
Well, you see as the screen, I'm the chief enthusiasm officer of my own outfit. It's called the 800-pound gorilla. My primary target has been the ticket sales departments of professional sports teams. And so I am a sales trainer by trade. I'm a 2-time published author. And for the last 20 years, I've enjoyed an interesting journey in the sales world and in the speaking world. And I can credit NSA for a majority of my success. The two guys in the room are terrific friends and have actually helped me in my career journey. And I'm happy to give back to each of you to be able to share a little bit about what I do and how I go about it. And I would tell you that the success that I have had has largely been based on my persistence in a lot of these cases. And so some of these things we're going to talk about today have to do with technique, but it also has to do with the fact that you've got to put yourself in 110% to do this, that you got to fill the door frames of people more than anyone else to be able to succeed, in addition to what we're about to talk about here. So is that good enough, Connor?
That's absolutely fine. So away you go. What we're tending to do, Bill, is we're doing a lot of Q&A. So if you want to do a short little presentation, then allow the audience to come in for questions. That's what we're finding it very, very useful. But I know your content is brilliant. You've been fantastic for the last few times we presented. So off you go, sir.
Grateful to be asked. I want to be sure how much time I have because of the time we've set, about quarter till or so.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you're probably under other pressure. So yeah, 10:45 will do fine.
That'd be fine. I just want to be sure that that I kind of where that goes. So here's what we're going to cover today in the abbreviated time that we have. We're going to talk about the three main concerns of most speaker decision makers, which are going to be important for you to know. The 10 best questions to ask to explore those needs that you have, just like we've been talking about earlier. So you're going to get some of that as well. And then we're going to talk about how to overcome the most common objections you're going to have in that on the sales side, and then close that deal. So maybe a little more than what you'd expected. So hopefully we'll be able to take some great notes and we can move forward. Gang, the most simple definition of sales I can provide you is this: helping people get what they want so you can get what you want. So many speakers don't want to sell themselves. They feel as though it's a nasty thing. They don't want to have to deal with that. They've got to postpone. They want to bring that to somebody else. They want to just get up and talk. And the challenge to all of us is that we're selling ourselves all day long. But we have to get out of the mindset that it's actually salesmanship, and it's helping people get what they want so that you can get what you want, whether that's additional gigs, more money, more prestige, or whatever that happens to be. Everyone you're going to be talking to that needs a speaker has what's known in sales as a gap. And a gap is known as the distance between where somebody is today and where they want to be, whether that's to impress their association members, to motivate their staff to do something else. You need to know what that gap is in order for you to fill that. It's inappropriate to fulfill something that somebody doesn't have. We say this in sales training all the time. Don't solve a problem somebody doesn't have. If everyone's into positive mental health and you have a presentation on mental health and you're presenting that to a potential customer, if they don't have a problem with mental health, there's a gap that you're not needing to fill for them. So you have to understand what their gap is so that you can then fill it. What we're finding is that the three main concerns or gaps of most of the speaker decision makers you run into will run into three different categories. Will your program, either your keynote, your breakout, your speech, help us achieve what it is we need to achieve? Are you, as a speaker or a trainer or consultant or whatever you are providing, qualified to help me? And how you present that qualification is important as well. And this may be the more important one that for some who are starting out may be the most problematic. Who else has trusted you that has had needs similar to my own? Now, this is a little bit of a chicken and the egg as you're beginning, because you may not have enough people that have trusted you to this point, but you have a background in your career with your employer, with the people that have trusted you in other instances that you can actually use. We're going to talk about that. But those are the three things you have to concern yourself with and have answers to before you even begin talking to these people. So it's getting very clear on this. You need, in order to do this properly, you need to know what your value proposition is. What do you bring to them that can help close their gap to make it very obvious that you are a choice that they can work with? If you're qualified, what you need then is proof of some sort of thought leadership. How are you presented and how have others perceived you that in that marketplace to be able to bring them the kind of solution that you say you can? And then who else has trusted you? The references you get, the past clients that you have will be easily your biggest resource and the opportunity you will have to grow. As I began my career in sports, I presented to the Chicago Bulls back in 2003 as my very first sales training client. And it wasn't until 4 years later in 2007 that I was allowed to present at the NBA Job Fair, which is an enormous event where 100 people in the room, all VPs and senior VPs of sales for the NBA, were all gotten together. Well, they happened to be looking for new sales trainers at that time. And I was asked to be one of those three presenters. And I was invited there based on my relationship with the Chicago Bulls. And oddly enough, Esther, they talked about it afterwards. They said, well, we chose you because we didn't have to buy airfare for you because the meeting was in Chicago. We could just have you come up the road and do it. And what happened there was I was able to present to the right people And that was my springboard to my career. And having done over 100 different teams in the major leagues and the minor leagues now in the US, Mexico, and Canada, I can point back to that one event in 2007 that brought me to where I was forward. So those are the kinds of things that can really help. So one of the things that you need to know are the biggest challenges for those who evaluate speakers. And so as you're talking to those who are going to hire you, the people that can write the checks, what is it that they're worried about? And this is really valuable information, gang. Speaker videos, and you're going to hear a lot about speaker videos and how vital they are to your success. They don't often convey the whole picture of the value and the fit for the group. One of the real challenges in meeting planners' lives is the fact that they will hire someone based on their video, and they show up and their presentation is nothing like the video conveyed at all. And of course, they're pointing back to the meeting planner and saying, how much of an idiot are you? You didn't do this for us. It wasn't what we were looking for. So be careful as you evaluate or as you put together your video to make sure that you're doing a proper job of presenting a value and a fit for the group that you have. They also have to evaluate your impact on the group. What sort of impact can you have before the conference? Can you provide a video or two or a lesson prior to the actual conference itself? What sort of an impact will you make as a presence at their conference if that's something that they require? Many of them like to have speakers show up for the VIP dinner before the actual conference, or mill around in the hallways during the conference, either before or after your presentation, to talk to some of the members, to gain more insight from both sides so that there's more value to the people who attend. And are there things that you'll provide them afterwards, like post-conference questionnaires or sessions or evaluations that you might provide? So these are the kinds of things that people that hire speakers and evaluate them will be asking, and that you'll need to be prepared to answer. They'll also need to evaluate your message. Does it fit with a theme or direction of the conference? If it's a square peg in a round hole, it's probably not something that's going to resonate with them. But if you can customize what you do to tailor it to their theme or direction, that's also important for them to know. When you do your video, one of the things that's sometimes underestimated is what we call in video B-roll, or the audience reactions to your presentation. Many of the people who do this professionally, and you'll see this in a lot of the samples, either on your own or through Speakers Academy, are the people that are on stage, and then you see the audience and you see their reaction to it and the positivity that radiates from them having heard your message. So that sometimes is as important to the evaluation of a speaker reel as the actual presentation itself. So just be aware of that. It's important. What else? Maintaining and growing the impact while staying within their budget. This has become more vital now in 2023 than maybe it ever has been. We have to go back to perhaps 2008 or 2009, Connor and Kevin, you know, those who have been at this a long time, you understand how things became far more important to be able to see an ROI from that. All of the things that are happening right now in the meetings industry are elevated in terms of costs, their food costs, their transportation, the hotel costs are way up. They have to be able to look, not to cut corners, but to be able to provide significant value to people while maintaining a reasonable cost to each of their members. So these are the things that they're worried about. Another thing they have to worry about is the politicization. Is that a word? Polarization. That's probably a better word, of what's going on in the world. If someone is on stage and brings a viewpoint or a philosophy or a joke or two that offends, they are the problem. And the meeting planner gets the brunt of the heat for something like that. So be careful. You cannot offend someone. And it's one of the questions that would be good to ask is there a subject or a topic that I need to stay away from relative to what is sensitive to your group? So let's talk a little bit about the value proposition as we go forward. Are there any questions as we go forward? Is this valuable so far? Great. All right, well then we'll continue on if I don't hear any questions from a value prop. If you don't make it really clear as to who you are, and more importantly, the solution that you offer, you won't be considered in the right way. We have it's an interesting thing. This is just done just a couple of months ago. One of the larger speakers bureaus, and there's several of them, So these are the hot speaking topics to watch in 2023. They said emotional balance and inclusion is big. That people who are looking at something that might help them in the workplace or in the communities or at home. Digital transformation is a big deal. So there's a lot of people looking at this particular thing. If you speak on this and you can speak to the kinds of things that others are looking for, like cybersecurity and AI and blockchain, that's important. If you know these things and you don't tell people you know these things, they can't hire you and don't see the connection between who you are and the solution you provide. Environmental responsibility is a big deal for policy, the environment and all the things that have to do with toxic greenhouse gases and those topics. If you speak on that, make sure that you understand what that audience is looking for. The other two are human rights. So if you speak on causes of human trafficking and some of the other things that are going on, that's important for the Speakers Bureau and the hirer of you to know. And the US and global economics, if you speak on that as well. Most of the time, these are going to be very bona fide experts who have PhDs and the kinds of things that you may need to be able to speak on those topics. So understand that they're looking at this from you. And if your materials don't convey that, then you're kind of in trouble from the start because you've not shown them exactly who you are and how you can help. Jay Baer and Michelle Joyce put this out a couple of years ago, and I think it's even more valuable to look at today. Some of the categories may have shifted somewhat, but I think it's important that you understand what's happening. These are 2020 speaking trends, but these are the topics that meeting planners wanted for that particular year. And if you look at, and the multiple answers could happen in this. So you look at 73% of them looking for leadership and motivation. Now, if you're down at the bottom with negotiation skills, that doesn't mean that you're out in terms of an opportunity, because you can grow rich in your niche with that particular skill. And if you're the one to go to in a particular target market that can really talk about negotiation from a building materials perspective, then you may be the very best person for that job. But here's where the popularity of categories exists, at least up until a few years ago. This was 2020. The interesting part is they asked this question. They said, what are you interested for in your meetings? But then they asked the meeting planners, what are you most interested in topic-wise? And of course, they had leadership and motivation at the top two, innovation, trends and disruptions, what's happening with customer experience. And again, negotiation on the bottom. Doesn't mean if you're a negotiation speaker that you can't make a very good living, but you have to be very niche oriented with that. I find this to be more valuable for each of us. The top 9 ways that meeting planners find speakers. This, I don't believe, has changed all that much. And I think this is worthy of really looking at very closely. 2/3 of people that hired a speaker saw them somewhere else. So if you have an opportunity to speak somewhere, maximize that opportunity with a video or a testimonial group or something to be able to justify the fact that, oh, they saw him somewhere else. Just like I did at the Chicago Bulls and then worked on to the NBA job fair, they probably wouldn't have had me in 2007 had the Bulls not worked with me in 2003, 4, 5, and 6. Word of mouth is a big deal for meeting professionals and non-meeting professionals, 65% and 55%. So who says so, essentially? Who is a person that someone trusts that says they do well at what they do? Google was one. Recommendations from other speakers is also a thing. There are several consortiums of speakers that get together to refer each other in certain circumstances, not compete, but to collaborate and to find out if somebody was really good. If Willie Jolly perhaps was on stage and you just electrified the audience, they may come to Willie and say, who else do you know in this particular category? Or Willie might say, hey, I've got these 7 or 8 other speakers and here's a sheet of paper, here they are. If you liked what I did, you'll really like what they do. So that might be something for you to think about as you market yourself. YouTube is somewhat important, social media, podcasts, and the Speakers Bureau is way down on the list. So for those of you who've been considering, should I be at a bureau or should I not? Most of the time, the people find speakers in other ways. And this is the different question. They ask, what are all the ways? And then what's the number 1 way that you find speakers? Word of mouth, number 1, from non-professionals and from pros.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah, just taking your career, you've got a wide range of clients now all over the country. And so if you take that 2007 NBA gig, what was the kind of progression then from getting one client to another client to another client?
I signed 4 of them immediately as a part of being there. And from those 4, everyone else heard about what I had done. I was very fortunate at the NBA is one of the de facto recognized leaders within the sports community as the forward thinkers, the ones who are first to get to certain things. And so when they found out I worked at the NBA, it was not difficult to call the national baseball guys and the soccer guys and all the others that are involved. They said, wow, you're working with them? Hey, we're Major League Baseball. We like what the NBA does. That's the thing that they, so I was word of mouth from the NBA to others. So here's what meeting planners want. Oh, go ahead.
So when someone phones you and says, I've heard about you, what is your pitch to them to say why they should take on Bill Guertin?
I actually have a little bit of that as we go through this.
Okay.
So if this is too much of this, Connor, I don't mean to dwell on it, but I want to be sure to get that done. So what are people wanting in a keynote speaker? They want to know that you're demonstrating expertise and that you have some specific knowledge that you can bring on, that you're inspirational, that you're maybe funny, that you have some name recognition, that you might be unique, that you are drama-free. 27% said drama-free. If you're not difficult to work with, they like working with you. It's amazing. Speakers and their egos have gotten in the way of more deals than you will ever understand. Just be nice and be approachable and do what you say you're going to do and actually have easy paperwork, and you will make people happy. What annoys you about keynotes? So here's something you need to take note of. That their content wasn't tailored to their group, that their content didn't match the expectations, i.e. the video was not what was advertised on the presentation stage. They went over or under time. That's why I was so angry about being here 20 minutes late, and I sincerely apologize to all of you. If this was a paid speaking gig, I'd have been skewered for that. And I'd hate to do that. Maybe the first for me ever in NSA that I've been remiss in not being here, but it's incredibly important for those who have a time schedule to keep and an agenda to follow. If you're inappropriate, if you're in and out, if you say, yeah, I'm going to show up, I'm going to be there at 11 o'clock for my noon presentation, and then I'm there till 1 o'clock, and then I'll be out on a flight at 3:30. That annoys people. If you're disorganized, if you have weird AV equipment and it's expensive for them, heck, it's expensive enough to be in the conference center. You know, what sort of AV are you going to require? Do you need a grand piano and 5 screens and are you easy to work with? Do you have super specific contract terms, green M&Ms in the green room and things like that? That really annoys people and then perhaps doesn't promote the fact that they're there. So as you do your value proposition, you want to have the clear statement of the results and outcomes that you bring as a speaker. Here's a couple of examples. And Connor, these would be the kinds of things that I might use on the phone as someone calls in. But this is also something you would be writing as well. I'm going to give you 2 examples so you can kind of see where we're headed with this. This speaker A described themselves this way. I'm a former Navy SEAL that has swam the English Channel and won the Paris to Dakar Road Rally. So I'm a winner that can make your people winners too. You'll get great high-res photos of me to use, and I'll even stay for autographs if you like. Now, this is pretty self-centered, you know, perhaps, but how would you be able to present this in a way that would be valuable to that group that you're presenting to? As a member of an elite military force and a world-class athlete, my message of courage and resilience will inspire your group to break through their own perceived barriers and deliver their very best for you and those they serve. Same guy, 2 very different presentations to benefit who? Them. Just because he's cool and he has high-res photos doesn't mean that he's a good fit. So as you present your topic and your change, your transformation that you bring, make sure that it is focused on them, not on who you are and how cool you are. Here's another example. I've been an RN for 33 years and clinical director of a 300-bed hospital in Iowa, where we've earned magnet status for the past 8 years in a row. I've been in the boardrooms where critical financial decisions are made every day. Not bad, but very me focused. How can you help them achieve what they want to achieve? I don't know that it necessarily matters that if a 300-bed hospital is where this person was. Here's a different spin on the very same person. After my custom tailored presentation, your hospital staff will have the tools and techniques they need to achieve an 85% or better on your Press Ganey scores and reduce turnover in your nursing department by at least 10%. Now, Connor, you've done a lot of work in the medical industry. I know that you do well with that. I don't know if you'd have any comments on this, but these are the kinds of things that hospitals want, correct?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's kind of, you're talking about custom tailored, you're giving specific percentages, you're talking about Press Ganey scores, which shows that you know the industry, etc. So it's a good illustration of what you're talking about.
Yes. So I will share with you some of the stuff that I've done. This was my sheet, my sell sheet for a little while. I had used this for a time and it showed my logos, it had my book and all kinds of stuff. And it was packed with stuff. And looking back, it was packed with crap. I have since taken a dose of my own medicine and simplified what I do. So I now have a far cleaner look and make it very specific that I am the 800-pound gorilla of peak performance in 3 different areas: sales, inspiration, and best practices. So I have those things going for me, and I'm far cleaner now as to what I do. My keynotes are very direct and to the point. They have specific benefits attached to them. And then I have my bio as well, which is very clean, and they can speak to whatever species of this they want. If they want the giant bio, they want the short bio, they can do this too. And then I have some testimonials from people that I've used. So this is my 4-pager that I send out, which might sound like a lot, but it actually comes in handy with the people that I deal with on a regular basis. So if you have your value prop, go ahead, Connor.
Can we go back to the bio for a second? And I want to ask the group for that one. What's your reaction to the photograph of Bill? Anyone want to comment? Sorry, Lucky?
I like it because it immediately says he's going to be able to frame the topic.
Right.
And it'd be easy for me to perhaps take some takeaways and implement them. It just the visual is just really
Anyone else got any
good.
comment on the photograph?
It's distinctive and expressive.
Okay, thanks, Jan.
What it says to me
Yeah,
is
all right.
that he puts the attendees in his frame.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, the core. Yes, John.
It shows that he's interactive with the audience.
Right. Okay. And what would a boring headshot show? Nothing like what you're talking about there. And just a simple little way to, he's differentiated himself ever so slightly with just an interesting, slightly creative headshot or mugshot kind of thing. So don't just go for the standard kind of boring photograph on your, if you want to, but I think something like this just shows a bit of personality, can make a real difference. Sorry, Bill, for interrupting.
No, not at all. And I'll just say this, I thought this showed a lot of my personality, but it was pretty boring now that I look back at it. And this had a lot of ego attached. Cool. I'm yelling at the audience. I look so cool with that microphone. But I now feel much more confident that this representation of me makes me not only more approachable, but a little more human. And as you go, and this is probably a good illustration, I was perfectly capable of confident with my first iteration until I felt as though I needed something better. And I took a dose of my own medicine and fixed it up. And so we're always in a constant state of achieving something better. So we're never in a state of this is perfect. All right.
Steve Cohen has a question.
Oh,
it's not a question. I think what it is it has to do with evolving. When you did that first one sheet, I think that's where the world was at. Those were the one sheets that probably you saw. And that just shows how you evolved into another area and how you're a different person and you moved with the changes.
Thank you. It's certainly the right way to look at it. And I feel really good about where it is right now. And that may be different 2 years from now, but for now, I'm all right. So once you have the value prop that you bring, it's important now to begin to develop this brand of thought leadership that you have. And this might not sound like sales, gang, but we're getting to the sales side. You have to have this foundation before you can sell yourself. Be known for what you know is a really easy to say this. Do people know what you know? You know, in doing the research is really important. I've got a set of 4 tires that I'd like to be able to sell to someone. Who would like to buy my tires? Anybody? Well, they're really good tires. They're in my garage. I've only had 100 miles or so on them. Why doesn't anybody want to buy my tires? Oh, they're really good. Come on, you guys. They're really awesome tires. I mean, what would you want to know about my tires if you wanted to buy them?
Safety.
It's what you need to know. Do you need to know that we have a need for your tires?
Well, first, absolutely. Do you need tires? If indeed you did need tires, what would you need to know about my tires?
Do they fit my car?
Really simple, isn't it? Yeah, if I've got a Hummer in my garage and you've got a Prius, it's not going to work out all that well. So you have to do that research as you go. Here's what I would want to, there is a question that I would have you ask. What does everybody in your industry know or want to know without anyone having done any research to back it up? And you might even want to take a screenshot of this or write this down, because as you're trying to figure out, how do I differentiate myself? How do I sell myself? That this question may be the catalyst for a research study you do or something you send out to your LinkedIn group that allows for you to have specific knowledge or information that nobody else in the industry has. They all know it, but they've never had a study that says, here's what the facts are. And we talked about this earlier. Just don't solve a problem somebody doesn't have. If they don't have a mental health problem at work, don't say, hey, I can solve your mental health problem at work. So the way you might do that is, hey, since you agreed, I'd like to have your help on a project. I'm doing a brief analysis of the marketplace to make sure my material is as current, as relevant as possible. What are the top 2 challenges or issues that you're focused on moving forward? And this might be to your group so that you can help solve those that come back to you as a portion of your talk. Is this salesmanship? Yes, because now you're understanding the needs of your potential marketplace. There's all kinds of ways in which you can advance this, and I won't spend too much time on this. So if you want to take a photo of this, you're welcome to, but I want to get to some of these other salesmanship things, which is why you brought me here. Client references and testimonials. Here is a great formula. If you want testimonials from somebody, here's how you can help them sell you. Sometimes I send them out. If I don't get them myself, I'm going to send these out and I'm going to seed the market. Thanks for the chance to work with you on your group. I so enjoyed X, Y, and Z. I'm writing to ask you to be so kind as to write a brief testimonial about my work. I found that sincere testimonials are one of the most powerful ways to grow my speaking business, and your recommendation would mean a great deal to me personally. I've attached a few examples to give you an idea of what I'd be looking for. So I give them some samples. Brief is better, but some of the elements of the best testimonials I've received has been, and then you put your own bullets in there. Why you chose me, did the program meet or exceed what you said, how tailored was it, positive comments, any tangible results you've seen, which is a big deal for me as a sales trainer. Your experience working with me, was I prompt, was I thorough, did I listen? And would you recommend me to others in need of the same? So you've given people the blueprint as to how to do a testimonial. If anybody's ever received a blah testimonial from somebody that you couldn't use, you understand where I'm coming from here. Yeah, Bill was great. He showed up. It was awesome. Come on, need more than that. So that's how the live phone
showed up sober.
So if I was going to do this on the phone, I would do almost exactly the same thing. I'd say, hey, I so appreciated you doing this. Can I ask you a few things about our work together so I can understand what's working well and how I might be able to improve? So I am literally getting the testimonial during the conversation as we go. So I would use these questions during that conversation. And then at the end of that, I'd say, I've been taking notes the whole time here, and I was wondering if I was to write up a testimonial, I was to write one up using the words you just used. Would you mind if I was to show it to you and get your okay to use it? Bam. Most people don't write testimonials because, not because they don't want to, it's because they don't have the time. They don't want to take the time, or they don't want to embarrass themselves. They don't want to take an hour. And I've known people that would take an hour and a half to craft this perfect testimonial. And it becomes a stress point for somebody. I don't want people to stress out from having worked with me. So here was a thing that I had done not long ago online. My keynote is called The 7 Voices in Your Head. The National Sports Forum had me do this virtually. So after I was done with this program, I then asked for testimonials. This is my personal action plan that I sent out. And here's what I asked all of them when they showed up. I'm so grateful to see you. Thanks for being there. Attached, you'll find the 1-page follow-up resource, which you just saw. As I begin my quest to become known for this message, I would be truly grateful for 2 things. An honest testimonial for what you thought about my program. And then I gave them some examples. And if you know of anyone looking for a keynote speaker for a virtual conference or online meeting, would you please let them know of my work? Because that's where this had been. So what did I get back? Hi, Bill. Well, happy to be doing both. I'm actually a leader at the Universities Alliance, and we're looking at a speaker, and we're headed down one road, but see if I can shift gears quickly. Don't have much budget. Sure what your fees are. Well, is that a lead? Absolutely. Thanks very much. Found it extremely helpful. What really stood out to me was you mentioning the fact that many of us are D1 athletes and then move into sales and being frustrated that we can't make things happen. I also could relate to the broken heart syndrome at the end of the program. I had a doctor tell me that very thing not too long ago. Breathe through your heart. Many thanks once again. Not super useful, but I can now use Linda Thompson's name from Odds On Promotions. Here are some things I saw. I was captivated from the get-go. I'm not in sales, but it still resonated with me, all of the content. The programming was masterfully done. Bill utilized audio and visuals to create an immersive and unique story. And you can bet your boots, I use this all day long. So you may have to sift through a few of the testimonials you'll get, but you'll get some nuggets.
Bill?
Yes.
Could I just ask, when you're doing the, asking those questions to guide them on doing the testimonial, have you tried like asking them the questions like in almost an interview and then writing it up and then asking if that would be, if they would endorse that as what their response is? Absolutely. That's what we were just doing with those yellow words that were on the screen. That was a phone call, essentially the script for a phone conversation. Okay. Sure was. Yep. Great question. And then selling your results. So let's talk about the grunt work, the prospecting, what it is you do. Before you call, you want to be prepared. And so this is the sales portion of what we're talking about, that you have a decent website, that you have a clear description of your expertise. Understand your sales process begins after you've done all this stuff. Because if you reach out and people try to get more information and it's subpar, you have shot yourself in the foot. So all of this stuff we've talked about up to now are the foundational pieces for you to now sell yourself. To have the website, a clear description, a good set of benefits that you deliver. If you have video, I say that, I'd love to say that that's an optional piece. I'm not sure that it is optional anymore, but something of your presentation. If you have any previous clients, that's great. And good testimonials that you have from others. So if you've got all this there, you may now start what I would consider to be a robust sales program for yourself. Here's the problem. Most of you start out with the phrase like this. This is starting from a position of weakness, gang. I just want, hopefully I'm not bothering you. And I'd love to possibly work with you. And nobody has at your first convenience. You know what at your first convenience is today? Never. So these are things that will shoot yourself in the foot. These are pillow words. They tend to cushion what it is that you're doing in sales, and it puts you in a disadvantage. Because what you're telling the prospect when you're talking to them in these words is you're telling them, this is less important than what you were doing before you answered the phone with me.
So be careful not to include these. These are fear-based words. In fact, some of you use every single one of these words in a single sentence. Please don't use these. You're going to shoot yourself. So where do you start? I love to start with what's called your everyday life list in prospecting. People that you already know who do things with you. Who do you know? Who's your accountant? Who sold you your car? Who do you know at your childcare that you could talk to that might be able to refer you? They may know what you do, but what they don't know are the benefits that you provide someone as a result of what you do. So as you begin to talk to the people you already know in your life, be sure that you let them know not just what you're about, but how you affect others' lives. And if you would like that list, I am happy to send it along. Connor, I'll send it your way if everybody wants the everyday life list.
Yeah.
Okay. This is another place to go if you want to speak to associations, associationexecs.com. You can get a 2-day trial for this. Now, this is a really expensive website. This is $3,000 or $4,000 a year. But for 2 days, you can actually get free access to this thing, unless they've taken it down recently. I don't think they have. Be able to download as much as you can and then just tell them no thanks. I know it's a cruel and unusual thing to do, but if they allow it, heck, why not take advantage of it? Now, some salesman will probably call you. Just be prepared for that. But that's a cool thing. I love to use Google Alerts, and I don't know if any of you are aware of this. If you want to find out more about it, look at google.com/alerts, and we can talk a little more about that. It can send things your way that pop up on Google using a specific word structure. So if you speak in the construction area, you might put an alert for new construction, Raleigh, North Carolina, or speakers in particular areas. And it can do this, and it can search, and it'll send to you either daily or every other day a list of those things that they found. So you could put alerts like this: Finance Annual Conference, Chicago 2021 or 23 or 24, whatever that number happens to be. Healthcare Conference, whatever you speak on. And then it will feed back to you those things that the spiders go out and find for Google Alerts. It's free, which is what beginning speakers love to hear. Even experienced speakers love to hear that. So it works well. When you call them, what solutions are they looking for that you can provide? This is the very same sort of philosophy that we've been talking about already. Here's how I call people. Now, this is not what Connor asked for. This is actually the opposite. This is me reaching out to somebody. Hi, so-and-so. My name is Bill Guertin. I'm an expert who speaks on blank. The reason for my call is I saw your conference is coming up in October. It prompted me to call you because I see that your theme is winner's edge. And I would love to be able to talk. So I've spoken to blah, 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 blah. The people that I've talked to with similar needs that have done really well. I'd be looking to schedule a 15-minute appointment with the person in charge of that. Would that be you, or would it be someone else? So what it proves are a few things. You didn't call somebody just from a list. You called from something you found. You said, I was prompted to call you because of a specific thing and a way in which you might be able to help. And you're not assuming that that's the person they need to be talking to. You're saying, I'd be looking to schedule a time to talk to whoever's in charge and ask if that would be you or somebody else. This is a formula that has made a mint for me over the course of the 20 years I've been doing this in speaking. So here's how it might sound in real time. Hi, Rachel. My name is Sue Smith, and I'm an expert who speaks on aquatherapy for athlete injury recovery. The reason for my call is I've done a little research, and I see that you have a virtual conference on physical therapy and sports coming up in March. Is that right? Great. It prompted me to call you because I think I can add to your roster of expert speakers, especially when it comes to the more advanced athletic injury treatment methods in aquatherapy. I was one of the expert presenters at the Midwest Conference in 2022 or 21, whatever one you want to put there. I'd be looking to schedule a 15-minute appointment with the person in charge of the speakers for that event. Would that be you, or would that be someone else? So you are prepared. You are not using any of those filler words like just and at your first convenience. You are eliminating all that stuff. And you're the confident speaker that you are. Club Calendar is another resource that you're welcome to look into. This feeds you lots of leads every month. It is a per person fee. It's like $149 a month to be able to be a part of it. Look it up, Club Calendar, theclubcalendar.net. There are some people in speak. If you like to do leads on your own and you have a hard time finding, this gives you all the information that you need fed to you on a monthly basis. And it's about $149 a month or something like that. It gives you a few hundred leads. Actually, the more you pay, the more leads you actually get per month. This is the kind of lead that you get from them. They tell you about the annual conference. This is the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. And it tells about the purpose, and it's got a lot of good background information. So here are the 10 best questions to ask, which I promised, to explore your prospect's needs. If you're ready, here we go. I like to do this at the very beginning. Before we get started, I planned about 20 minutes for our get-together. Are we okay on time? I think people today in a time-starved economy appreciate the fact that you're looking out for them, making sure that you don't overextend the time that you planned. I'm sure you have a few questions, but I had a chance to do a little research before our meeting today, and I had a few questions for myself. That's okay. And then give them the reason to be able to do that. Here's the one I do. I see your conference is scheduled for March 11th and 12th. What's going well in your planning right now? Are you finding that virtual is going to be okay? Or if they're doing it live now, are they doing live? This may have been a little bit more dated back a year or two ago when virtual was going to be okay or not okay. Question number 2, what would be your number one goal for the conference? Is there a major theme or initiative that you focused on that's a top priority that I may not have seen on your materials or on your website? Oh, that's a, okay, that's a duplicate. How about that? Seeing as how different this year has been, what would you say is your biggest challenge with the conference right now? And every year is different, so it can be any year. How would you want this conference to be remembered by those who were here? Is it an ROI thing? Is it something else? Is it more spiritual? Is it more of a feel good for those who are there? What is it that they'll be basing their success on? How is the process of choosing your speakers changed with virtual versus live? And there may be less virtual than there ever has been. You may have to eliminate this question. But indeed, you may want to ask that too. Has your total budget for, you might want to ask, what is your total budget for speakers? That's how I might change this now that we're going back to almost 100% live. I don't like to say total budget for me. I like to know what a total budget for speakers are so that I know the round number that they have. They may not be telling, they're not going to tell me what they're going to afford to pay me, maybe, but they will tell me what the whole budget is for the entire thing. I find more traction on that particular question.
Bill, can I jump in? This is Kevin.
You go right again.
Lucky, I think you need to mute your phone. We're getting some feedback from that. So if you can mute that iPhone. John, if you could mute yours as well. I'm not sure if it's muted. Thanks, Bill. Sorry about
No problem. This is always important when I speak to folks. How will you measure the success? And this may be a redundant question, depending on how you ask it, but you want to be sure to ask that during the part of this, so that you can be part of the success. What is the process you have in place for choosing the speakers that you're considering? Do you need to see them live? Do you have videos that you require? Is there a conference room that all of you sit, 6 or 7 of you, and watch videos of people, which is very common? Are there any priorities and topics that they've told you that your attendees say that are really critical to them? And so you might find out what their priority number 1 is, and number 2, and number 3, and so on. Well, based on what you've told me, I think there may be an opportunity for us to work together, and here's why. Now, this is if you feel as though there is an opportunity to work together. If you think that there is no match, please, please let them know, gosh, I'm not quite sure I'm your guy, but I happen to know 1 or 2 others that might be. Do not try to fit a square peg in a round hole, gang. It's the easiest way for someone not to want to work with you again. Here's what I think, although if you do see an opportunity, here's why. You need to let them know what the logic is for you to be able to fit into what it is that they are doing. Make sense? All right. I know I'm going fairly quickly, and I hope that that's all right with folks, but I have the objections here that you might want to have to look at. So if somebody says, well, it's all about closing, right? The show me the money. Oh, I know what it was. This is, what objections are you hearing that I might be able to help with an answer on? That's why I put that here. Is there some objection that you want to address today that I'd be able to help with while I'm here? Well, hold on to that thought, and I'll put some other stuff in. Maybe you'll have one later on. So let's talk about how to close the deal. My Jerry Maguire guy is a big deal. There are procrastinators all the time. They're going to put you off as long as they possibly can. There are 20% of the Americans are chronic procrastinators. So this is the guy who studied this at DePaul University actually came up with that number. So here are some ways in which you can help close deals for you. This one is called agree on the small stuff. And there's 3 different pieces to this. We'll start with the very first one. I'll go through each one. Can we both agree that the topic is what you're looking for, or your group really needs a positive experience, or I have the technology on my end to do the job you're looking for? Whatever the agreement is, make it easy for them to say yes. If we can agree on that, can we also agree that the money is not the issue and that you do have budget enough to cover me, or that my kind of message is what you're looking for? Again, asking a question that is an easy yes. Okay, then knowing that, why don't we just go ahead and lock in the day right now so it isn't taken by somebody else? Or, okay, then knowing that, why don't we just give it the green light and I can go to work on creating your custom program? Or why don't we just say it's a done deal and you can cross book the speaker off your list? These are the kinds of things that take confidence on the part of the speaker. No one's going to speak for your behalf better than you. And you've done all the homework prior to this. When you're selling yourself in front of a speaker or the conference chair or somebody you're dealing with that's going to say yes to you, this is not the time to chicken out. You need to be confident and comfortable in asking for the business. And I'm getting close to the end. And so what I want to be able to do is allow for questions and things. Connor, did we cover the majority of what you wanted to cover, or is there something else that you might wish to have?
I thought it was very, very comprehensive, Bill. If people can remember and implement half of those questions, they're going to be doing very, very well. So kudos to you on that. And we'll open it to questions for the group. Any particular questions you want to ask Bill? Becky says gold. Thanks, Bill. John, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. That was really informative and very helpful. A lot of great information there. Do you have for someone who's just kind of getting started, sort of what to expect from, coming out of the gate? How many talks to book in a year, or anything around money, or just, I like the steps you have here, that says, okay, you're ready to go, but then, like, what should someone expect in their first year?
John, that is so unique to the individual speaking and the expectations that you have. I'd love to be able to tell you, your first time speaker, you'll make 20 grand and then you'll make 300 grand. It doesn't work that way. What works is bringing value to the clients that you serve, doing a really good job with them, asking them for recommendations for others that might need a similar type of thing, and then just working really hard in maintaining that value for the people that you're going to serve. I'd love to tell you there's this magic formula that says this is what you should make if you put in this many hours, and there's really not. It's the value you bring to the table, which will be the highest and largest determinant of how much you can expect to make, how many speaking engagements you can expect. And frankly, this is going to be a tougher year, gang. We're going to have to really prove our value. And you may have to take a little less money than you thought at the very beginning, because food costs are up, transportation, everything is up. And in order for us to do a better job for folks, we may need to take a little bit of a haircut. But The business is there. And if you're good enough, you can make it happen.
Right. I know Bill is under pressure, so
Thank
we'll
you.
take quick questions from Steve, Alan, and Mike. Steve.
Bill, quick question I wanted to ask you. I myself also prefer to talk with people first.
Yeah.
But is there any reason why you would start your conversation with an email or any other type of communication?
Yes, there is. I would say, hey, I'm going to be reaching out to you in the next couple of days, but I wanted you to have a little bit of information on me before we do that. And then I would actually reference the email when I call.
Got it. Perfect. Thanks.
You bet.
Alan?
Hey, thank you, Bill. I'm curious, you had said one of the hot trends is for emotional balance and inclusion. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, well, it's not me saying that. It's actually the speakers bureaus themselves. And there may be a little bit of self-service to that article because they may have people in that category that they want to promote. And so they may be puffing up that category to be able to sell their own people. But I think emotional wellness, stability, if you see the mental health of those in the workplace, that's become a much larger issue going forward. And I see that as becoming more and more needed as things go. I'm not sure that there's a lot being paid for the people that are the top in that industry, but there's certainly an enormous need for those kinds of speakers. And if that's a comment, or if that's a place that you exist, Alan, I know my keynote called The 7 Voices in Your Head exists in that category too. And I'm happy to speak offline if you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael, and then Jan, we'll take a hard stop at 10:50 because we have another session starting at 11. Okay, so
Yep.
Michael and then Jan.
You bet.
Thanks, Bill. So I saw that one of the things that was listed as kind of a pet peeve was going over or under. And I'm wondering, I know that can be a challenge. I know for me, sometimes getting all the content in on time and maybe under, especially if it's interactive. But I wondered if one is worse than the other, and like, should you err on one side versus the other?
Boy, that's like saying which of your children should you spank first? The challenge is neither of them are acceptable. And on occasion, you may be asked as a speaker and you're ready to go and you want to go on stage and you've got a 45-minute presentation plan and the CEO spoke for 20 minutes over. The meeting planner comes to you and say, oh, we have to cut your program by 20 minutes. You only have 25 minutes to do that. Go. And so you have that to be able to deal with. So you must be prepared to be either short or long at any time. None of your material is absolutely uncutoutable. You have to know and plan in certain segments what you should prepare and what you shouldn't. And never should you say, if I'd had longer, I would have shared with you this and this and this, but we'll just move on. No, you just have to pretend that was your presentation and nobody missed anything. Gosh, I hope I answered your question. So it's the answer is neither are acceptable.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
All right, Jan, final question.
Sure. When you are, excuse me, when you're calling the meeting planner or the organizer, you don't set a time to call. You just call hoping that you're going to get them on the phone, or are you?
It doesn't mean that I wouldn't have reached out perhaps on LinkedIn, and that might be another way in which to do that. Would love to be set up a time. I use Calendly, which is an awesome app that allows someone else to be able to set a time that you have on your calendar. Mm-hmm. What it requires for you to do is to keep your own calendar and keep it up to date so that they're looking at all the stuff that you've got going on and what's available in your calendar. They can't see what you're doing. They can just see what's available and then choose the one that best fits them. I found that to be an enormous time saver for me to find out who's got the most amount of time and when that time is. Okay. Yeah, I'm not shy about calling people. And what's funny is you are in rarefied air when you do that because very few people are actually picking up the phone anymore. It's a lot of email, text, or some other way in which to get a hold of people. It's refreshing to get a phone call from somebody on occasion that say, wow, that shows your chutzpah and shows your willingness to go out over and above to be able to serve somebody like yourself or to serve that client. So I can't tell you the number of times people have hired me and have said, you know why I hire you, Bill, all the time? It says, because you don't just email, you actually pick up the phone. I love the way in which you attack the business because I want my people to do the very same thing. And I respect that hustle that you have. So if that's an attribute that you have, that's a positive thing and people hire hustle.
Okay. All right. Bill, I want to say a giant thank you for participating this morning, especially as you had some issues going on, I know, in the background. So very much appreciate that. And I also do know that you're absolutely great at turning up on time. I've never had any problem with you. No one has any problem with you. So we do appreciate that. In a domestic emergency, you took time out to make this happen.
Thank
For
you.
those of you who are interested in it, we'll be showing the video again. I'll go back and look at it. I'll look at some of those screens and some of those questions that Bill is asking. So let's give Bill our giant, on the count of 3, hoot, 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 okay, to say appreciation. So 1, 2, 3, hoot,
Hoot, hoot, hoot.
hoot, hoot. All right, William, you're a
Thank you,
star
Bill.
man. Hopefully nothing too serious happening.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day with, because you had a terrific speaker on the way. And thank you, Connor, and thank you, Kevin, for your patience with me today.
Nice
Thanks,
job.
Bill. Cheers. Stay well. Okay. All right, gang. You may have noticed there that Mr. Lance Miller has joined us. Lance, welcome aboard. We're going to take start at 11 o'clock Central Time, if that's okay. We're going to give them a quick bio break. So we'll see everyone at 11 o'clock Central your time. Okay. All right. Good stuff. Thanks.
That was real.